As you know, new elections will be held in the United Kingdom at the beginning of July, and the incumbent Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has lost a lot of ground after serious blunders in recent weeks. On May 19th, Craig Williams placed a bet on the website of the betting provider Ladbrokes in the county of Montgomeryshire in Wales, and his tip was there will be new elections in the British House of Commons in July. I talked about this last week. He bets £100, and 3 days later, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announces the dissolution of Parliament and new elections on July 4th. An incredible stroke of luck for Williams, you might think, but Williams is not just anyone. Sunak is his boss. Williams is the Prime Minister's private secretary. The subordinate is now under investigation because there are many indications that he used his inside knowledge to make a bet. I should have thought about how stupid something like that could look, is what Williams wrote on Facebook last week. But bad luck and failures is not only there in this case. Sunak's election campaign is not off to a good start. The Craig Williams case fits seamlessly into a series of strange events that are being exploited in the British press, and that's why I want to give you an overview. We have May 22nd. Sunak wants to explain the new elections to the British. It's pouring with rain, and the Prime Minister is sometimes even difficult to understand. While he tries to present his plan of bold action with a certain seriousness, he's completely soaked. And a few meters away, a demonstrator is playing the 90s dance hit, "Things Can Only Get Better," at a deafening volume. So a completely soaked and exasperated Sunak retreats to the government headquarters at 10 Downing Street after a few minutes. And The Guardian headlines maliciously, "Things can only get wetter." Maybe. And on May 23rd, just 1 day after the announcement, the Prime Minister produces the next devastating headline. Rishi Sunak scores own goal in Welsh brewery, headlines The Independent. Sunak had asked the brewers from Wales whether they were looking forward to their country's appearance at the European Championships. But the answer is Wales has not qualified for the tournament. On May 24th, during a visit to Belfast in Northern Ireland, Sunak visits the Titanic Quarter, an opportunity that British press obviously does not miss. A journalist asks Sunak whether he sees himself as the captain of a sinking ship, and Sunak says no, but The Guardian writes, Sunak's campaign tour gets off to a horrific start. Visit to the Titanic Quarter inspires comparison to shipping disaster. And journalist Ian Dale asks on X, what's next? A visit to a funeral home? And then we have June 6th. During the D-Day celebrations in France, Sunak leaves before the end and is represented by Foreign Secretary David Cameron. It later emerged that Sunak had brought forward an interview with ITV. However, the interview was not broadcast until a week later. And after heavy criticism, Sunak apologized 2 days later and cancelled all press appointments planned for that Saturday. Background discussions with national and international media representatives were also cancelled by the Prime Minister's office. And then we had June 12th. ITV broadcast the interview from the previous week for which Sunak had left the D-Day celebrations. The broadcaster also plays the beginning of the recording. Sunak enters the studio late and calls out to the journalists, "The event," and he meant the D-Day celebrations, "was incredible, but they went too far." In the interview, Sunak explains, among other things, that he understands the voters as he also had to do without a lot as a teenager. For example, he did not get a subscription to the pay TV channel Sky at the time. On the same day, Sky News broadcast a debate between Sunak and his rival Keir Starmer from the Labour Party. And in surveys, 64% of viewers say Starmer won the debate after Sunak had been given a narrow victory in a debate the previous week. In an analysis for Sky News, the broadcaster's political director writes, Mr. Sunak seemed exhausted by the voters' questions. It almost seemed as if he couldn't wait for the end. And then we're June 13th. In a press conference on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Italy, Sunak is asked about Craig Williams, the employee who had bet on the July election date. Sunak refuses to explain whether Williams knew about his plans for a new election at the time of the bet. He does not want to preempt the investigation. And when a journalist explains to him that he can clear the matter here and now, Sunak repeats his statement. The mishaps in the election campaign do not seem to be without consequences. In a new survey by the YouGov Opinion Research Institute, Sunak's Tories are suddenly even behind the right-wing populist Reform UK party of Nigel Farage, the politician who in 2016 stood for the now so unpopular Brexit like no other, and who surprisingly announced his return to politics just 2 weeks ago. The Conservatives would then only be the third force in the kingdom. The Tories are at 18%, Reform UK at 19%. That's a triumph for the right-wing populists. Farage took the opportunity and, in an interview with The Telegraph, stylized the survey as a decisive moment not only in the election campaign but in the future of the right. The Tories are completely broken, and Farage predicts that the party will split over important issues such as immigration policy. Within a week there will be a war within the Conservative Party, he predicted. Keir Starmer's Labour Party is at 37%, 19 percentage points ahead of the Tories, and the trend is also clear in favour of the Social Democrats. Sunak's debacle could therefore turn into Starmer's big victory. He could be the first Labour Prime Minister since Gordon Brown 14 years ago. The UK's ruling Conservative Party has suffered another setback. The populist Reform Party of right-wing populist Farage has not only overtaken them for the first time, but Farage is really using that. I saw the debate on ITV where Farage seriously said that he was now the official leader of the opposition to Labour. We will see how this will be after the vote. But still, the Reform Party, which is led by Farage now and largely financed by former leader multimillionaire businessman Richard Tice, has a largely populist program that is intended to appeal to voters from both the far left and the far right. Although I haven't seen the full manifesto yet, the Reform Party, formerly known as the Brexit Party, has so far indicated on its website and in speeches that it is targeting issues such as immigration, of course, and reforming the UK's public health system. The YouGov poll shows that the Reform Party is now at least level with the Tories in the polls nationally. The UK newspaper The Telegraph reported that senior Conservative Party figures have warned that Labour could win a large majority if the Reform Party takes votes away from the Tories and splits the right wing. The Lincolnshire seaside town of Skegness is one example of many where opinion towards the Conservatives has changed. It once had a strong Conservative majority, but recent opinion polls suggest it may be moving towards Labour, and some are eyeing Farage's Reform Party. One of the key political issues there is immigration. And the social psychologist Veronica Lamarche from the University of Essex explains the phenomenon behind Farage's rising popularity. When the economy is not doing so well, the temptation is great to make blanket accusations or find a scapegoat, she says. And she says of Farage's politics, I think Nigel Farage can paint a very simplified picture of what the future of Britain could look like. Fundamental to the Reform Party's ideology is people coming to the United Kingdom and blaming them for all the problems we are currently seeing in the country. Well, as I said, on July 4th, new elections will be held in the United Kingdom after British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak requested the early dissolution of the British House of Commons on May 22nd. And 650 MPs will be elected then. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.